All set.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Drive-In Site Utilization Committee meeting, August 4th, 2020. My name is Tom Roche. I serve as Vice Chair of the Drive-In Site Utilization Committee. I will be taking a roll call vote for a quorum. David Reed,
Present.
Jack Mack,
Yeah.
Bud Nugent,
Yeah.
Peter Slovak, Rich Bilski. With the quorum present, I will now call the meeting to order, and I will ask the moderator to explain how the remote participation will work before proceeding.
Thank you. As a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of the coronavirus, this August 4th, 2020 Drive-In Site Utilization Committee meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Kathy Williams. I'm the town planner and will be serving as your moderator for this virtual meeting. Although no in-person attendance is allowed, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings. People who would like to view or listen to the meeting while in progress may do so by watching this virtual meeting or dialing into the number provided on the notice of meeting. We also post a recording of the meeting on the Town of Yarmouth YouTube channel. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with the virtual meeting. For all meetings, to reduce confusion during the meeting, all audience participants of the virtual meeting enter the meeting muted. Participants will be unmuted when called upon to speak by the chair or the moderator. All votes must be roll call votes. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noise, and do not use speakerphone or Bluetooth devices when speaking. For public participation, although the DISAC meeting is not a public hearing requiring a public comment period, at the discretion of the chair, comments or questions from the public may be taken. Members of the public may speak by selecting the raise hand button and waiting for the chair to call on them to speak. If you are dialed in to the phone number provided, you can press *9 on your phone to indicate you would like to comment. Members of the public recognized by the chair are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record, then provide their comment. I'll now hand it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. First item on the agenda is discussion, reconsideration of a marina at drive-in property. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, the Town Administrator has suggested that the Drive-In Site Utilization Committee reevaluate the concept of a marina on the former drive-in property. Kathy, I will start with you. How did this happen? Where did it come from?
I think it was when the Board of Selectmen were talking a little bit about their goals, and one of the comments was made was just making sure that under current conditions that a marina still is not financially viable. I think there might be, it's been a little bit of time that's gone by, and I think maybe not all the Board of Selectmen members recall what happened back in 2013, 2014. So I think it might just be a case of providing them with that recollection of what happened with regard to the feasibility study that had been done for the marina. In the cover little memo that is included in your packets, it also includes the entire financial feasibility study that was done by Applied Technology and Management back in 2013. And it basically showed that the construction costs, which were even for the base phase base plan, was 10.3 million, and for a two-phase modified case, which was meant to kind of reduce costs and maximize revenue, that was still 9.8. And those costs at the time didn't take into consideration state wage rates, which can add at least 25%. And it's also been many, many years that have gone by with construction inflation. So you're talking about projects that might be in the 16 or $17 million range right now. And those are something that a marina where you actually have to excavate the basin and armor the sides is much, much more expensive than a lot of the marinas that you see where they're putting the piers and the floats out into the water. It's much more economical to do that and get the revenue back that you need in order to cover those construction costs. I don't think there's been any specific and significant changes that have happened with regard to the market for slips or the amount of money that you can get for slips that would warrant not only trying to cover the deficit that was shown back in 2013, which was at least $100,000 per year for the modified case and at least $500,000 a year for the base case. There just hasn't been a significant increase in revenue to cover the increased costs in construction or even to cover the original deficit that we had. So in order to really try and make this a financially viable, you'd have to kind of change what you were originally doing. Before, they were trying to get revenue mainly from wet slips, dry stack storage, winter storage, utilities, fuel sale, and some boat ramp usage fees. So to really get any additional revenue, you'd have to change the entire concept, which might need to include some type of commercial and or residential components, which is really going against why the property was purchased back in 1986, which was for recreational purposes alone. So in addition to all of the financial considerations back then, there was also a significant number of environmental permits that needed to be obtained. As you all may recall, there was some legislative relief that was given for some salt marsh impacts, but that was just one component. There was still a lot of other regulatory requirements and evaluation criteria that still needed to remain. At the time, we were starting up with the Drive-In Site Utilization Committee. I did talk to Carl Von Holm, the Director of Natural Resources, and he had sent that email that's included in your packet with his estimate, and he has a lot of experience in this, of saying that he thought there was only like a 50 or 60% chance of being able to obtain all of the permits required for the project. There was also some other considerations with regard to the location of the marina on the river. It's a fairly narrow river and shallow river, as well as there's also an existing marina kind of across the river from this. So the study also included requiring some type of dredging of the Parkers River, which was not even included in that original cost estimate. So I think there was a lot of really good reasons why back in 2013 it was decided to not continue with the marina, and that's basically why you guys, the Drive-In Site Utilization Committee, was developed to look at different uses. And we've moved forward quite far with the Riverwalk Park and the boardwalk and the event space with the completion of the feasibility study, and we've actually secured up to $3.2 million in funding for the project. And we're kind of ready right now. We have a proposal from Beta with regard to design and permitting that needs a little bit more vetting, but we're kind of moving towards all of that. So I think the Board of Selectmen might just need some type of update or reminder of some of the reasons why it wasn't financially viable back then, and kind of indicating that we don't necessarily see any reasons why it would all of a sudden be financially viable now. If anything, it might even be worse because of the increases in construction costs.
Do you know if did they vote on this?
I do not believe that they did.
Okay. So within a mile and a half, there's 3 existing marinas. Think about it. So, comments from the committee?
Yes,
David Reed here.
that we, I move we recommend no, based on all the reasons that Kathy just enumerated.
Agreed.
I'll second that motion.
Was that a motion?
Well, let's give everyone a chance to speak on it first.
Oh, you can have discussion after a motion.
I tried to go back and watch the tape of that meeting, and it's not available. There is no recording of that meeting.
I did too.
I checked with Mike Stone for his recollection. He thought it was little more than a passing comment by Mr. Tolley at the end of the discussion about goals for the year. His recollection was that there was no vote taken by the board. He didn't think there was even really a consensus that it should be even looked into. It was little more than a passing comment, and seems to have been taken out of context. From what I can see from our discussion and from what little I learned from Mike. I can't imagine that after all this time, we want to go back 7 years to a project that was ill-fated then, that our own experts said was probably not permittable, would cost more than it was worth, and would not generate enough money to carry itself going forward for a 10-year cycle, according to that report we've got.
Yeah.
So to now undo all of our work, the votes of the selectmen to accept our recommendation that we stick with the original taking purpose of recreation, not commercial or marina, and the voting of the town meeting to appropriate money from community preservation for this project that's now under works.
Yeah.
To jeopardize that by delaying where we are seems to me to be foolhardy at best. So I would join Bud's motion to recommend to the selectmen that we stay the course and continue with what we're already doing.
Okay, that's in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second, I'll second that motion, Jack McCormack.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, roll call.
Jack
David Reed,
McCormack,
aye.
Did someone else want to speak?
Nope.
Anyone from the public, Kathy?
If anyone from the public's interested, they can raise their hand if they have any questions. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. David Reed,
Yes.
Jack Mack,
Yes,
Bud Nugent,
Yes,
and myself, yes. The motion carries. So Kathy, you're going to send a memo to the Board of Selectmen?
Yes, we can do that. And I think it might, I don't even know whether it will be an agenda item for the 11th. I did quiz the town administrator quite a bit as whether this was a directive from the Board of Selectmen, because I was a little surprised that we were kind of going down this direction all of a sudden. He kind of thought that it was, and it was interesting to hear David's discussions with Mike Stone, which was kind of a little bit of a different flavor. But I can certainly put that in a memo form and just send it to the Board of Selectmen.
And then I would also incorporate Christy Santori's comments as well.
Good point.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on the marina issue? The next item on the agenda is Innovation Arts and Entertainment, amended proposal for the drive-in site. Discuss proposed amendments to the current use of the drive-in site, IAE. I think personally they're all reasonable and they make sense. Any comment, Kathy?
No, I didn't know whether, I know that you guys had provided some comments to the Board of Selectmen on the two proposals that had originally been presented. I didn't know if you had any interest in reviewing this or providing additional comment. I probably wouldn't have had a meeting just for that, but since we were having it, I put it on the agenda in case you guys wanted to discuss.
yeah, one question. Do we have any feedback on how ticket sales are going? Somebody told me that they're running at close to capacity. I didn't know if that's true or not.
I think he's been having some difficulties with regard to the drive-in movies being as profitable. But I think that the live performances are seem to be doing better for him. He's been working very closely with the.
Sorry to interrupt, but you have an appointment soon.
Working with the health department and making sure all the COVID-19 protocols have been in place. But I think the movies themselves, because they have to pay 50% of whatever they take in for a ticket price automatically goes to the movie, no matter what amount they charge. It's very difficult. The live performances, I think he has an opportunity to make more money on that.
Well, I would think so. I just paid $250 for one ticket to Greg Gutfeld.
I was just going to mention that. I watch him on the 5.
Yeah.
Very interesting individual.
To tell you the truth, I looked at their site today and I was kind of disappointed in their lineup. This was sold to us as a family movie night operation, the traditional drive-in to get families who are already here in Yarmouth to stay in Yarmouth. And I looked at it tonight, there's not a single movie scheduled at this time. It's all comedy and bands and performances. There's no movies scheduled at the moment. Now, I grant that the site says they update it weekly. That doesn't mean there aren't any in the pipeline, but at the moment, if somebody looked on that site, there's no movies at the drive-in. So I'm kind of disappointed in that, to tell you the truth.
I think what they're looking at is the price per car.
Well,
I'm not sure. But
if I can make, Mr. Chairman, if I can make a comment.
Yes, Jack.
Weeks, there's been movies advertised every week. So,
If I can make a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Jack.
My daughter, she went on opening night. She and her husband and took their son, my grandson, who's a 30-year-old adult with developmentally delayed and they were quite pleased. He enjoyed the movie. And so she went on it earlier this week to find out what movies were scheduled for the week. There are no movies scheduled for the week at all. Her other son, my grandson TJ, who's a Yarmouth resident, is a Harwich policeman, he bought tickets for one of the scheduled performances of the group, and I think he told me his ticket was $100 a car.
Oof.
So that's my comment.
Any other comments on IAE? Kathy?
No, I know that the Board of Health met last night and discussed it a little bit. And it seems like their comments were more related to how the alcohol was going to actually be delivered. So I think they spent some time talking about that. And I know that he's been coordinating with some comments from the police department and just making sure that all of the standard things related to alcohol have been covered.
Yeah. Well, I think the selectmen are quite satisfied with these amended proposals as well.
Well, though it's going to be
Something.
August 11th is when they're going to actually be talking about that's the public hearing for the extension of the entertainment license through the fall, and then the alcohol license as well.
Okay.
I think it's a little different from what he first proposed, that's for sure.
He's been
Yes.
adapting.
Yeah, it seems that way.
And we asked when we had the two applicants, what kind of access they had to entertainment and movies, and the selectmen went with the larger company instead of the local company, notwithstanding our recommendation. But the idea of it being other kinds of entertainment was really an afterthought, not their primary focus when this was sold to us. So
Yeah, exactly. Okay, any other comments? If
So
not,
I'm not going, there's nothing that you guys are interested in sending to the Board of Selectmen. You're all set?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, unless we want to say that their amended proposal is fine with us relative to the overall operation, if that's what you think is warranted. If not, I mean, we won't do anything.
I don't think you need to do anything.
Okay,
It's up to you guys.
okay, meeting minutes, June 16th.
I read them over. They seemed fine to my recollection. I would, unless anybody has any questions and changes, I'd move to accept them as printed.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
Okay, roll call. David Reed,
Yes.
Jack Mack,
Yes.
Bud Nugent,
Hey,
and I, yay as well. So motion carries.
I have Carl Von Hohn isn't here and he has his hand raised. I'm just going to allow him to talk, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think he missed the part he was here for.
I think I did. I just heard you. I was tied up on another Zoom meeting and just got off and joined in. I just wanted to be here if you had any questions and just be available for you. I apologize for my tardiness.
No problem, Kyle. Do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Not at this time. I couldn't imagine on what the cost for construction and how much of a larger gap there might be with construction costs and potential revenues. We were seeing at the later stage when we were doing that study, the gap was slowly getting larger and larger between the construction costs and the potential revenue to pay for the project. So without any other data, I wouldn't hence a recommendation to do anything at this point.
Okay.
Could I have just a question for Kyle?
Sure.
Basically, Kyle, from what I can tell, I would assume that there are no permits still existing of any regain, and that the project would just have to be started right from scratch to go into it again, I believe.
Yes, I agree. We would have to probably start from step one. We did not, we had dialogue with the permitting agencies back then. to try to garner support and direction on how to move forward. But we did not get any permits. We did not, start the process, the hard process, really getting into the state and federal end of things. So yes, we would, at this point, it's been long enough that anything that we did start, we would have to do again.
Thank you, Carl. Thank
Can I
you
ask
for
a
your
question to
report
Carl
through
as well?
Kathy.
Hey, Carl,
Yes,
as I recall, there was money left on the table from that project. Is that correct?
that is correct. And that is, I've more or less turned it over to community development, for whatever there is, but help me, Kathy or Karen,
Sure.
was it about 244 or something
There
in
was,
that range?
yeah, there was 200,000, I think, from DCR that was to go to the
Correct,
marine park. There was like a little park part of the marina.
right,
So that we are going to be utilizing that for our Riverwalk Park.
right.
That was my point. That would be a great use of it.
I think all
Right,
CPA funds have been
absolutely.
sent back.
I have a question to Carl.
Sure, Dave.
Carl, I don't want to put you on the spot too much in terms of your expertise, but based upon what you do know about the project and the history of the project, is there any reason for you to think that it would be any more viable now than it was 6 years ago? 7 years ago?
Not necessarily. I still say it's a 50-50 chance of getting it permitted through all the permitting, entities. That was my comment back 6 years ago. There was never any nod or letter saying, oh yeah, we'll work with the town of Yarmouth on all these permits. Being on site with a lot of the permitting agencies, both state and federal, a lot of them still had reservations on the project. So, and then as far as revenue and cost, we would definitely need to figure that out. And I cannot imagine it's any better, especially now going into the world that we're in now, with costs and with revenues.
Just a couple of comments relative to that, David. If you look at the debt service, it was 6%. By today's standards, you're probably talking 2.25, 2.5. And then there was a cap at $175 a foot, and that could range up to $225, $235 a foot, based on current standards. And the other thing I'd like to mention is, I spent a lot of time in my backyard watching the river and watching the boats. I've never seen so many new boats coming from Bass River Marina as I have this year. So people haven't had a lot of time to do other things, but they're certainly taking time buying new boats.
And I gather they're not getting any smaller either.
They're not.
No.
So
No, and
just
we
a
are.
few things to consider.
We're seeing a lot of new boats out there, but the dockage around the area is still what we had a handful of years ago. So it's people that have been on the water with boats already, but they've just bought new boats. And many of them have upgraded size-wise with some of their boats because some of the incentives were out there by a lot of the boat dealers. So I don't see that many people new or that big of a push new to generate a lot of activity for necessarily a new facility. But activity this year is absolutely crazy on the water.
It is.
And it started in May, and I think it's going to go through October of just this constant craziness of social distancing on the water.
Yeah. Well, I think we should use that 200,000 that's left over for the kayak launch ramp, and that can be our version of a marina.
There we go. There we go. It's watercraft.
Okay, any more comments? Motion
Move we
adjourned.
adjourn, Mr. Chairman. Move we adjourn, Mr.
Do we have a second?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the motion.
Adjourn.
Adjournment.
Second.
David Reed,
Yes.
Jack Mack,
Yes.
Bud Nugent,
Aye.
and I say yes as well. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Stay
So
safe.
Carl,
Bye.
Carl,
You too.
Dave
Yes.
Stocchetti and I were talking about you the other day. He thinks very highly of you.
Oh,
Who's
well,
that?
thank you. I've known him a real long time.
Yes, I know. Me too.
Take care, all.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kathy.
Bye-bye.